Okay, I wanted to do a video on the welder I bought about 5 years ago from Harbor Freight, and I bought this welder honestly just to do household type welding. This is not something that I bought to use every day. It's not something I bought to fabricate anything. It's just a handy household welder that you could buy, and you could put it on a shelf, or you could put it on a cart like this, and you'll have it if you need it. So I want to do a high level review on what I feel this welder is good for, and then also maybe what it's not so good for. I also have some tips and some tricks that I learned while using it that I can offer that will make this welder even better in my mind than it is out of the box. A lot of people buy these and they don't know really how to weld, or they're just trying to fix something small around the house and they have no experience with a welder. So this welder is perfect for somebody who wants to learn welding, who is younger perhaps, or somebody who has a house, is a homeowner, and wants to have a welder around the house in case something breaks. For example, if the basketball hoop breaks, you could weld that. It's really good for lighter steel. I think it does really well in the 1/8 inch to the 3/16 inch, and it's not rated any higher than that. So you're not going to weld 1/4 inch steel or higher with this welder. So that's really why people buy it, is to have it around the house, and or they want to learn how to weld for the first time. So my overview on this is for the money and for what you're going to use it for. This is a perfect welder. It's at a really good price point, and it's one of those tools that if you use it once a year for the money you spend on it, it is absolutely well worth the money. I think I paid in the range of about $200 for the welder, the cart, and the helmet. And the helmet is the auto darkening one. That's the one you want. It's activated through the welder itself. When the arc turns on, the darkening turns on, and then when the arc turns off, the darkening turns off, so you can also see what you're doing with the helmet on still. So that's the one you want from a helmet perspective. It's over here. I can show you that. It's got the auto darkening helmet, and that is about 5 years old as well. So that can be found on the Harbor Freight site still. It looks a little different, the newer version of that, but that's the one you want. And like I said, I spent about $200 on the entire setup, and obviously everything else underneath the cart I bought and or had, right? I've got some grinders down there. I've got some C-clamps in the back. I've got a bunch of wire wheels on the bottom, or in the middle area here, extra wire, and some other things on the bottom. So that's what you should expect to pay, and that's what you'll get. This one here is the 90 amp. So they make a newer version of this, which is, I believe, 120 amps. A little more amperage, but honestly not really going to be able to do more than 3/16 of an inch steel. So keep that in mind when you're looking at a welder on their site. The ratings are going to be rated for about 1/8 inch when you're getting into the 90 to 120 amp. You can do 3/16. You're not going to do 1/4 inch with this. The only way you can do 1/4 inch with this is if you were to V out the metal pretty heavily, and you don't really want to have to do that, I'll be honest with you, because it's not going to be easy for you, and you're not gonna be able to get a really good weld that way unless you have a lot more experience. Okay, so that takes you through the overview of the welder. I would say it's well worth the purchase, and it's definitely something that you will have for a long time, and it will come in really handy. So now I want to talk about some tips and some tricks of what I had done to the welder, and also some extra wire wheels I had bought after I was welding to clean up the welds and stuff like that. So basically, when you open this up and you put this all together, it's going to come with some wire, right? And the wire that it's going to come with is really not the most optimal wire, I'll say. So what you want to do is you want to pick up some name brand wire I happened to buy the Lincoln electric wire from Home Depot just because it was readily available off the shelf. So that's what I did. I picked up some higher quality wire, and also you want to pick up some new tips for the gun. What you'll find is that the tips that come with it are gonna jam up relatively quickly. So you'll be welding, and within a short period of time, the tip will become jammed and the wire will stop feeding from the gun. That is just because the tips are probably also made from a lower quality steel that come with it. So both the wire and the tips, you want to replace those with a higher quality replacement. I think Lincoln is a decent brand in my mind, so I went with that. And again, these are all at Home Depot, off the shelf, and that's really the reason why I went with this brand. I'm not going to try to sell you one brand over another, but you know, you can do your own research and figure out which brand you want to go with from the wire and the tip perspective. So those two things you want to do for sure. And then also the other thing you're going to find is that the clamp, the grounding clamp, which is really important on welding, is going to be a little weak, right? It's not strong enough to get a good ground unless you get it on there and you put a secondary clamp over the two clamp edges, right? So what I did was I just used a C-clamp over this clamp to create a much tighter fit to the metal. But the other option you have, instead of just using a C-clamp over it, would be to replace this grounding clamp altogether. You can buy these and you can get a heavier, dutier one, which has a much heavier spring in it. This is just, in my mind, just a little too soft, especially if you're welding steel that is rusty and or corroded in some spots. It's hard to get a good ground unless you have a stronger clamp. Again, I use a C-clamp, a mini C-clamp over this to kind of press down even further, and I can show you what that looks like. So I would take a C-clamp like this, let's say you were welding the cart, and you would put it over, over the actual clamp itself to hold it on there. And if you were to open that, it'll be easier to see. Yeah, so that's what it would look like if you were to do it the way I did it. I have the C-clamp. This welder is really not my primary welder for fabrication and stuff like that, so I didn't want to go crazy and buy another clamp just to have it there. So that's what I did. The other thing I would recommend is you want to get one of these for your grinder. This wire brush is really good for cleaning up the slag. So when you do the wire feed flux core welding, there's going to be slag that's left behind on the steel that you're welding. To get that slag off of there and any kind of spatter from the welding process, these are great. You put these on a grinder, an angle grinder, and then you just clean up your welds with this brush with the angle grinder, and that will really help you to both clean up your welds and then prepare the metal before you weld as well. So when you're welding the steel, you want to use this on it before you do the welding because it'll clean it right up. You want to expose the steel if you can, get all the paint off it, get all the rust off it before you weld, and then after you weld, you want to use this to clean up the welds. So that, you can also get that at Home Depot. That's off the shelf, and that is something you're going to want to pick up for sure. So those are the high level tips I can offer you if you buy this welder. It's the wire, it's the tips for the gun, and then also the wire brush, and then perhaps maybe a new clamp and or usage of a C-clamp to make the clamp work a little better. And that's pretty much it. And I think if you buy this welder, you'll be really happy with it. And I think with these tips and these tricks, it'll be even easier for you to use this welder. Again, this is good for someone who's learning how to weld for the first time, or a homeowner that has, maybe a project once a year that wants to weld something that's lightweight. You're not going to fabricate with this welder. You're not going to, weld 1/4-inch steel, nothing like that. But in my mind, it's definitely a good purchase, definitely worth it. And if you want to learn how to weld, this is definitely a great way to go. So I wanted to add one more usage tip. And when you're using this welder, I find that it works best on, if you're gonna weld 1/8 inch, 3/16 inch steel, which is really what this welder is the best for. I would say 1/8 inch, somewhere in there. The wire speed that you want the wire speed on the machine is a little fast for the amperage. So you're gonna find that if you turn the wire speed up anywhere above 4, it's just too much wire, and the machine can't weld quick enough with that wire speed. The amperage isn't going to be hot enough. So you want to keep the wire speed in the 3 to 4 range, and you want to keep the power on max. The min setting, honestly, I've never really used it on min because I've never welded steel that's thin enough to require a lower voltage or lower amperage. So the voltage is 110 volts when you plug this in. It's just a regular household 20 amp 110 volt line, but the amperage is what this controls, the min and the max. So keep it on max for amperage, and then also keep your wire speed in the 3 to 4 range or lower. Don't go above 4. If you go into 5 and 6, it's like I said, it's just way too fast when it feeds the wire. You can't keep up with the wire. With the welder and the amperage, it's not going to keep up. So that's my usage tip. I always have it in the 3 to 4 range. I always have it on max, and that's really good for the 1/8 inch type steel.